Welcome back to another episode of Project Freelance. How's it going, guys? My name is Kay Anagonio, and I am your host here on this podcast where every single week I bring you a different guest to talk about how they built their freelancing business. This week on the podcast, I am speaking with a music photographer who has gotten back into weddings and portrait photography because there are no shows right now. Her name is Kaitlyn Johnston, and I am very excited to have her on this podcast. We talk about music photography, we talk about portrait photography, we talk about talent buying. She's also a talent buyer, how she's pivoted during COVID, and we also talk about reptiles for a good 5 minutes. So if you guys are into any of those things, stick around. Before we get into the episode, there are a few things I need to let you know about. First of all, I would like to thank our partner on this show, Liquid Death Water. If you've never heard of Liquid Death Water, don't worry, because I've got an ad coming for you in 3, 2, 1. From the streams of the Austrian Alps comes a new kind of water. A water that is sure to raise you from your grave. If you're tired of buying cases of plastic water bottles that contain carcinogens and God knows what else, or if you're trying to lower your waste footprint, Liquid Death comes in beautifully rugged aluminum cans. Murder your thirst with a can of Liquid Death. Check the link in the description and use code JustTheLetterK at checkout for 10% off your order. Liquid Death. Murder your thirst. So yeah, if you guys want a discount on Liquid Death Water, use code JustTheLetterK at checkout for 10% off. You can buy one case, you can buy 20 cases. I get a little bit of kickback from that, so I appreciate it ahead of time. Also, there are a bunch of links down in the description. They are Amazon affiliate links, so again, I get a little kickback from them. But there are things down there like camera gear, audio gear, gear for exploring abandoned places. If you're like me and you like to explore abandoned places, there's some gear down in the description that I think could help you out. Things like backpacks, lights, camera gear, shoes, masks, things like that. And if you want to further support the podcast or any of my art, I'm a musician, I make YouTube videos, I'm on TikTok, I do all kinds of things. You can support me on patreon.com/justtheletterk. And lastly, if you guys would like to support me even further, I have a book out, a photography book called No Tracers, An Urban Explorer's Diary. Like I said, I explore abandoned places when I'm not freelancing, so I made a book about it full of photos and stories of my urban exploration missions. So if you guys want to get a copy of that or read my blog and see some of my abandoned photography, head to notracers.com for more information. And without further ado, Kaitlyn, could you please introduce yourself and what it is you do to the Project Freelance audience?
I'm Kaitlyn Johnston. I'm a freelance photographer, and I guess pre-COVID, I also was a talent buyer. Yeah.
So how did you get into photography in the first place? Like, what made you catch the bug for taking photos?
So I got into photography when I was 8, which sounds absolutely insane to say, but my dad bought like the original Canon EOS Rebel, whatever, right around my 8th birthday. And I decided that because he bought it by my birthday, it was mine, whether he liked it or not. Which he wasn't very stoked on because, that's a lot of money to hand a 8-year-old and be like, okay, have fun. But it went from like taking pictures of like the family dog and my little sister to like actually taking pictures of people, which was really cool.
So when was your first experience like photographing a human? Like, what was that experience like? What did you shoot, and what did you gain from that?
So it was absolutely terrifying. I want to say I was like 11, and my dad was like, hey, we need to do like work photos for where I work. Do you like want to use my camera and take them? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, like I'll be so great at that. No, I wasn't. I was so awful at it. Really exciting thing to get to do. I hope they never actually use the photos, and I hope they hired a professional after the fact. But I definitely learned a lot from it. Most of what I learned was that I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but it was an experience to say the absolute least.
Yeah, it sounds like you kind of got a trial by fire. He just kind of threw you in the deep end. It was like, hey, we need to do this, so you're going to do it. And I think
Yeah,
that that's amazing. You know, I think that's a great way to kind of get into photography. I have a similar story. I started out, I took one photography course like at a local place, and next thing you know, the instructor was like, "Hey, I need an assistant, come out and shoot photos of these sports cars with me." And I was like, "I don't even know what an aperture is, but let's go."
You're like, yeah, do it. Okay, I press button, take pretty picture. Yeah.
Yes. And yeah, it turned out like one of the photos actually ended up in a magazine. It was a photo of the photographer taking a photo of the car. But I mean, it was pretty cool experience. So I love hearing about like the first time experiences. And as an 11-year-old, did you get paid for that gig, or was that just something that your dad was like, "You're doing this"?
I got like $20 in a milkshake or something.
Hey, I'd take $20 in a milkshake any day.
Yeah, honestly, like I think he like took me to Steak and Shake after
Sick.
and was like, "You can get a large milkshake instead of a kid-sized milkshake." I was like, "Oh my god!"
Oh, I love that. I love that. So going from there, when was your first like proper paid gig that was like more than $20 in a milkshake? Like that actually like, I don't know, paid some bills for you or something like that.
So around when I was like 13, 14, I met another local photographer in the area I grew up in. And funny enough, just like met him at like a 4th of July parade. He was shooting the parade for like the local newspaper. And I was like, oh my God, like, what are you shooting with? Your camera looks really nice. Cause I was just like, it was like my first time seeing somebody like with a 7200 and like a professional body and all that stuff. And I was like, oh my God, it's so nice. And this man just like handed me his camera and was like, just shoot the rest of the parade. Like, have fun, whatever. And then after he looked at the pictures I took, he hit me up like 2 months later and was like, so do you want to be my assistant for weddings? So I
Wow.
started shooting weddings with him, which was never like what I thought I was gonna like do because I don't know, everyone always talks about weddings being stressful, which they're not that bad. I'm gonna be really honest, but I started doing that so like around like 13, 14 or so and started actually like getting paid for it and realizing that like maybe it was an actual job, which was really cool.
Wow. That's amazing
And
that, you know, you were so young, but go ahead, continue.
oh no, it just went from there. It was crazy how fast like everything happened from there. Because
Man,
I technically started my own company at 17. Um, but that was like kind of a wild ride because I had brain surgery when I was 17, and then immediate immediately after I was like, so now I'm just gonna do this photo thing.
yeah.
And like nobody's gonna tell me no because I just had brain surgery. Like who's gonna look at me and be like, no, you're gonna get a real job. They were just like, okay, honey, do what you want. And
Wow.
it just took off from there.
Wow, I love that you started so young, you know, like a lot of people don't start till they're in their like 20s or even their 30s or 40s, you know, but like I love that you started so young and your parents seemed to be pretty supportive of it. What was it like for them to watch you fall in love with photography?
I think my dad at times is a little jealous that like I made it my job and he like works a normal job as a nurse. Not that he doesn't love his job or anything like that. Like he definitely loves what he does, but there's times that he's like, I could shoot a wedding with you sometime. Like,
Oh,
remember I taught you. But overall, they've been pretty supportive of everything. Never, like push the whole like maybe you should get a real job kind of thing on me as long as like I wasn't asking them for money every week or something crazy. But even like with the pandemic and everything right now, like when it started, they were really supportive of the fact that like my life ended when the world shut down in March, whereas like none of my siblings did, my dad didn't, like, so they were super supportive during that time as well, just like knowing that because I have been not like professionally doing this since I was 8, but doing this since I was 8, I had nothing to fall back on
mm,
when like the world just stopped.
man. And how did you navigate that during the pandemic? I know we're still in it. We just went into like our second harsh lockdown. We have like a 3-week stay-at-home order right now here in California. But what did you do to keep yourself occupied during that time instead of just letting yourself fall into like depression like so many people did?
Well, so the start of it, I drank a lot of wine and cried,
For
which I
sure.
feel like everyone did. Um, but like I mentioned before, I also do like talent buying and promoting. So at
Mm,
first I was staying really busy because I was having to go through and cancel all these shows that I had booked for the whole summer. And it was like at first we were canceling like, okay, this started in March. We'll cancel through like we canceled through like June, and then we were like working on rescheduling everything. Because like when it started, we were all like, okay, it's gonna be like 6 weeks. We'll all
mhm.
stay in our house. It'll be fine. God forbid people, listen to that. That's not what happened. We all know that now at this point. But like for the first couple of months, I was very focused on like, okay, how am I gonna keep like my booking going? Where am I rescheduling people to? Like how am I working with the venues that are staying open? And then the longer we went into it, like the more I was like, okay, like everything's canceled. I'm not rescheduling a single thing until I know it's safe. Because the last thing I want is to host an event that's not safe and someone gets sick or get a family member sick or anything like that. Like, I literally wouldn't be able to live with myself. So then when that happened, and that was like also about the time that I was like, oh my God, I'm running out of my savings,
Mm.
I started working like COVID elopements, as people are calling them now. Um, where it's like people who were supposed to have these giant weddings that suddenly are getting married in their backyard with their mom and dad there. Um, so like I started doing a lot of those where they were all like super socially distanced event, like wore a mask the whole time and stuff like that, and started like easing my way back into like portraits and stuff like that instead of working in music like I was up until this point. Because like last year I was touring with bands, I was working music festivals, like I didn't have time for portraits and weddings the same way I did or I do now. And so I was like kind of just like threw myself headfirst back into like weddings and portraits. Um, which was like kind of depressing, but also like really refreshing at the same time. Cause I didn't realize that I had gotten like, I don't want to say like lazy because that wasn't what it was, but I got like comfortable in what I was doing working
Yeah.
concerts. And like walking into the first wedding, like during COVID, and realizing that like I was so out of my comfort zone, it was really fun to like challenge myself in that way again. And then like as restrictions in Ohio kind of lifted for a while and like bigger ish weddings were happening for a minute. So I worked like two like normal size, not like okay, so it wasn't like normal size, like 100 plus people. It was like less than 50, but still like a wedding. It wasn't like it didn't feel weird
Mm.
outside of everyone wearing masks. And that like kind of got me back in the swing of like life in general. And I also started teaching my boyfriend how to second shoot with me because it makes my life so much easier if I could just have him come work with me versus having to find someone else and arrange their schedule around when I would need them.
Mm.
So that's been really fun, just like teaching him how to use a camera.
I love that. I
He
love
picked,
that you're trying
he
to take him
picked up on
into
it.
your world.
Yeah, he picked up on it really quick. He shot his first wedding with me, I think it was like 3 weeks ago, and like he killed it. I was actually like a little jealous. Like, I don't know, I didn't pick up on it that fast. So the fact that he did was like, I don't know, it's not fair, but
I feel
that's
you.
fine.
I feel you. So tell me a little bit more about your concert life. Like, when did you first start shooting shows? What was your first show, and how did you go about getting your first press passes?
So I started getting into like shooting local gigs around like 17 or 18 because I had a bunch of friends in like local bands around Chicago and stuff like that, which is where I grew up. And it would just be like they'd let me in if I would shoot their band. Because I had no idea how to shoot in low light at that point in time, like period. It was terrifying. But my first show I ever shot was, oh my God, it was Carousel Kings, Freshman 15, Survey Says, and somebody else that I don't remember the name at Penny Road Pub in Barrington, Illinois, which is like a literal grimy dive bar, like the basement of it. It always smells like stale beer and pee. Um, it's just like one of those, like it belongs in Guitar Hero kind of venues. And it was an awful time, but also really cool because like my friend's band opened up that night, acoustically. and I got to hang out with them. And then like the guys in Survey Says are still in a band, like a new band now. And like it's that relationship's lasted throughout the years. Like I still actively work with them. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's super rad. And I like, as a fellow concert photographer, like I love hearing how people got into their first shows, and it's always a different story, you know, and everyone's got their own experience with it. So I like to ask people like, you know, how they got into their first show, just because a lot of people listen to this show and they're wondering like, how do I get into concert photography, you know? And a lot of times what I tell people is you have to find a local venue that's smaller that will just let you walk in with your camera, because I mean, that's how I started. You know, I lived in Perth, Australia for a year, and that's where I started doing concert photography. And literally most of the venues you could just walk in with a camera and they wouldn't say anything to you. They'd just be like, go have a good time, enjoy, you know? And so I think that's the best way to get into it. And I mean, for like, I'm sure you've shot Warped Tour before, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like my experience shooting Warped Tour the first time, I found Kevin Lyman's email somewhere online, shot him an email. I was like, hey, I'd love to come shoot a show. I just moved back to America. How do I get a press pass? And Kevin was just like, yeah, come to a show, whatever show you want. Just shoot me an email with the dates and you're more than welcome. And so like,
oh my God, I did like the exact same thing for my first Warped Tour.
I love it.
And it was like wild because I thought the email was totally fake because it was like at AOL. And I was like, no one uses AOL anymore. This can't be it.
Oh God, that's amazing. I love it. And yeah, it was totally an AOL account. Like, it's because Kevin's been around forever, since AOL, you know, so it makes sense.
Right. No, it was like emailing him like aged both myself and him a lot in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So going more into like talent buying stuff, can you talk about that process? Like, how do you find the bands? Do the bands find you? Like, tell me the process of being a talent buyer.
For sure. So, I kind of inherited a company, a little over a year ago now called Out of Context. It's Chicago based. One of my best friends, started it from the ground like 4 years ago. And then she was offered, a bigger job in New York working with an agency. So she moved and it was handed down to me and my best friend, Michelle, who like had been working with Out of Context for a while already, but like not to the same extent that Nina was obviously at the time. And so I guess like the way like booking the show and the talent buying works really depends on the situation of the show. The first show I ever personally booked, the venue was like, hey, we have this date in 2 weeks that we need filled. We'd like to announce it in 4 days, fill it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. I can do that. Yeah, okay. And moral of the story is I could do it, but it wasn't easy. But I spent like I was leaving for tour that day too. So I spent like an entire 7-hour car ride just like dry emailing bands, being like, hey, was offered a show this day. Let me know if you're free. Thanks, Kaitlyn. To like literally every local band in the city of Chicago that I knew. Which is not how we normally do things by any means. But desperate times call for desperate measures, I guess. But normally, like when a band's going on tour, they'll reach out to us or their agent will. And we kind of like negotiate as far as like, they'll like send us like, wow, I just forgot every word I ever spoke in my life.
It's okay. It happens to me too.
I like looked over and my snake was doing things and then all the words were gone.
Oh, side tangent. You have a snake? What kind of snake?
So I bought her today.
Oh, congratulations. Yes.
She's an albino milk snake. Her name is Strawberry Milk Snake.
Yes.
I love her very much and she just climbed something and I got really excited seeing her being active.
Oh man, that's amazing.
And it was just one of those things where I saw it happen and I lost every thought that I've ever had in my life because all I could think about was, wow, she's so cute.
You know, I am a avid reptile collector myself. I've got 3 lizards right now. I also have a praying mantis and I love albinos more than anything. Like,
I have literally had a thing for albino since I was little. I had an albino Burmese python when I was 5. My mom made me get rid of it because it was like 17 feet long or something crazy. And she like just gave birth to my little sister and she was like, it's eating things the size of your sister. And like she wasn't wrong. It was.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but I don't know, if you asked 5-year-old me, I probably would have picked my snake over my sister. 24-year-old me honestly would probably still pick the snake over my sister, but that's fine.
Oh
But
my God, amazing.
my
Yes.
boyfriend and I suddenly got on a reptile kick this year because one of my new personality traits during COVID is that I became a plant lady.
Mm.
So I bought like 64 plants in like 5 months because I have no self-control. And one of them, there was a lizard egg in and it just kind of hatched.
Wow.
So we have a baby brown anole
Cute.
that she's like 4 weeks old now. She is very cute. Her name is Nola, but like that just sent me back down the reptile rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah.
So today we were like getting things for her at the store and I saw strawberry and I was like, well, I'm getting a snake.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So now we have a snake.
I love it. I took my partner to go get like crickets and stuff for, she has like 7 reptiles and a ball python. And she was like, I kind of want to get a chameleon. And I was like, you have to get a chameleon. I've had a panther chameleon and they are so fun and so pretty.
I've wanted one for so long. They're
My
so
God.
cool.
They are so cool. I used to feed mine by hand. He passed away earlier this year, but like,
Aww.
oh my goodness, what an amazing, his name was Rango, after Rango, the animated movie, of course.
God, I love him. I never knew him, but I love him.
Yeah, right? That's what I'm saying.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
It's
I'm like
okay.
sad for you right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. He was like 5, they only live to be like 5 or 6. And he
Right.
he ran his course. He was a good little fella. But yeah, so anyway, now that we've talked about lizards and reptiles, welcome to the podcast, everybody. This is how we podcast. We just talk about whatever happens. Love it. So yes, talent buying. I've always been fascinated with that as somebody that's in like 2 bands, as like, how do we get on a show? Like, and so you were talking about how, you would cold call by email bands and get them to like play shows. I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, so we have we didn't do it this year because COVID, but we have like a Google form that we share around like our local Facebook groups for the music scene every year. Just to update like the bands that we see like and hear about because like Chicago has a really big scene. It's really hard to keep track of everybody. There was a point in time that I thought I knew almost every local band. Turns out I knew like 5 people and they were just all in the same bands. But yeah, so we like have this Google form that we like post around and we ask like your genre, a streaming link, your social media pages, and an email for you. So that when like we get an email from an agent of someone on tour, we just like go through that list and find like first narrow it down to like what genres fit, and then we go through and like listen to their songs on Spotify or whatever, that Bandcamp, Apple Music, depends on the day, depends on the link. And just kind of like match things that sound right or like are in the same like similar like vibe kind of thing. And then go through and like check out when their last show was in the city and like how the Facebook event did, even though I mean you're in a band, Facebook event numbers don't match what attendance matches, but it gives you an idea. My favorite thing Nina ever taught me when we were taking over the thing was if you want to see how much a band draws in a city, you go to their Spotify and look at their top cities and like whatever the streaming amount is in the city you're trying to book them in, they'll draw maybe 10% of their streaming number.
Oh, wow.
So like if you like pull up somebody and they stream, like they have 100 listeners in Chicago, they're probably reliable for 10 tickets.
Wow. That's so fascinating.
And that's like it's proven true pretty accurate, like pretty much all the time. The only time it gets a little different is if it's like an EP release show or anything like that. Just because like more family and friends tend to come out for that than just like casual music scene people.
Right.
Yeah, no, that was a really interesting thing that she taught us. I was like, that doesn't seem like it would work. And then the first time I did it and it like came true at a show, I was like, oh my God, like that was magic.
Wow. So I'm just pulled up my Spotify artist page just out of curiosity for my solo music. And Russia just recently got Spotify, which I think is so cool. And one of my top cities is Moscow. And so that's exciting. That makes me want to go international like ASAP.
I love that. You must go tour Russia right now.
Yeah.
Well, not
Yeah.
right now.
Right now.
By
Immediately.
right now, I mean immediately post-COVID, you must go tour Russia.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of like post-COVID, are you guys already talking like plans for post-COVID, like what's going to happen? Because I mean, some people are speculating that people aren't really going to go to shows, and some people are speculating that it's going to be out of control. Like everybody's going to get booked for everything all the time. There's going to be a million shows.
So Michelle and I talk about it a lot. I guess talk about it a lot is a really loose term. We talked about it a lot at the start of COVID. We haven't talked about music or shows in a hot minute besides like talking about Grammys and new releases, but that's different. Like we don't plan on having a show until we would both feel comfortable being at a show. Even after like the world opens up, we don't want to put people at risk. So until we know, until we see the results of shows happening and stuff like that, we're gonna kind of like lay low for a little bit. I have an autoimmune disease, so like that's a big factor in it. It's just that like we want to be as safe as possible, and if I'm not comfortable, like I don't want to put somebody else at risk potentially or anything like that. But from the way that Chicago seems, we're kind of expecting shows to just kind of like pop off when they do come back. There have been a couple venues who aren't following state regulations, unfortunately, around us. And they have had some shows that, kind of went off. Very unfortunately, all things considered right now. But I do think that gives us like a good idea of what to expect after if people are, in cases like this, willing to go risk it all for a cover band. I think we're going to see good attendance once shows come back,
Awesome.
As long as they feel safe.
Yeah, definitely. And like, I'm super looking forward to that. Like, I haven't been to, I mean, who's been to a show since, whenever, but I mean, like I got to go to a Slaves live stream show, and I got to go see the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. They did a live stream show, and I filmed behind the scenes for both of those shows. And my own band played a live stream as well. So, I mean, I've been to like 3 concerts in the past 9 months, which is so sad, but I'm so grateful that I've had the opportunity to like go see a show, even if it is just me and 3 other people in the room with the band.
Oh yeah.
But it's like so cool.
I have a live stream I'm going to do photos. My boyfriend's band has a live stream for his release. He just released an EP a couple weeks ago, or not even a couple weeks ago. He released an EP on Friday. Wow, time moves really slow. But they're doing a EP release live stream in a venue here in Columbus. And like I think I'm just gonna like lay on the floor and cry hearing live music.
Right.
Because like the last time I went to a show was literally the night that things were closing. And like before COVID, I spent like half my time in Chicago and half my time in Columbus. And I was in Columbus when like all the COVID restrictions and lockdown started. And our friends in Glacier Veins were on tour at the time. And they're from like, oh my God, where are they from? I think that's like Seattle or something like that. So like they were all the way across the country from where they needed to be. So they were like, okay, we're going to play our show in Columbus and then just like drive home and get home as fast as possible. So Jake like hopped on that show acoustic, and that was my last like music experience before like this live stream in a week. And that was, I think it was like March 9th.
Wow.
So it's been what feels like years.
Yeah, literally. I feel the same way. I feel like it's been years since we had a proper with a crowd live show. And like right before COVID hit, I went on tour with a band called Red Handed Denial from Toronto, Canada. They did their first West Coast tour, and I've been friends with their vocalist for, I don't know, like 7 years because of YouTube covers that we do. And so I got to go on tour with them. And right after that, like everything shut down, and man, it's like, it's just been, like you said, it feels like it's been years, and it sucks. But I mean, you know, we're gonna get through this, and it's gonna pass. And I think, like you said, I think shows are gonna pop off, and people are gonna be more excited than ever and more grateful than ever for shows.
Oh yeah, because I think like it sounds weird to say, but I feel like the fact that like in major cities especially, you could go to a show any night. Like I know for a fact I took that for granted, and I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a ton of other people who feel the same way. Like there were times I used to dread like having to go to a
Right?
show.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, "Oh my God, I'll go to 3 shows in one night. Please just give me a show."
Yes. Oh my God, I feel the same exact way. So, I'm going to ask you this question, and some people don't like to answer it, but you know, it's a question. So, have you ever been screwed over?
Yes,
Tell me more.
countless times. Um, so God, I'm just trying to decide what story to tell. I mean, like money-wise, it happens a lot in this
Yeah.
industry, as I'm sure you probably are well aware.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there is a band that still owes me upward of a couple $1,000,
Yikes.
that I've basically just come to a conclusion that I'm never gonna see. Um, it'd be really sick if I did see it randomly one day, but like it's in the past now, I guess. But I did a full EP branding for them, did cover art for them, took photos of them in a recording studio, did multiple YouTube videos and a promo session and 2 shows, and just never got paid for
Yeah.
any of it.
Wow.
Yeah. Don't work for your friends. Because they're
Amen.
probably not actually your friends.
Amen. You're
That is,
preaching to the choir.
oh yeah, that was the biggest lesson I've ever learned was like, hey, you might think they're your friends. They're not.
Damn.
They definitely just want you to do things, and then just they're gonna not be your friend anymore. But that's
Exactly.
fine. Everything's fine.
Everything is awesome. It's all on fire. Everything's fine.
Oh yeah, I am literally that picture of the dog sitting in the
Yeah.
burning living room drinking coffee saying this is fine. Like that is me every day of my life.
Right? Oh God, I can relate. I can totally relate. Have you ever had any internships, or have you ever been a mentor for anybody?
I technically have an intern slash mentor right now. Um, but I actually haven't done anything with her because COVID.
Right.
So, I feel kind of bad because I was like, yeah, like we'll do this stuff this year. And that started in February.
Mm-hmm.
So that, kind of can tell you how much has actually happened
For sure.
besides just like texting about things.
Right. Right.
But besides that, not really.
Well,
I think
hey,
that's it.
you know, that's all good. I mean, I have the same kind of similar story. You know, I found this guy, and I really want him to like mentor me, and we wanted to do all this stuff together, and then COVID. So, I mean, that's
Yeah.
it is what it
That's
is.
kind of
The
how
motto
life
of
happens, I
2020.
guess, this year.
Yep, it is what it is. And then
Yeah.
who are some of your influences as far as like photography goes, or anything creative? Like it could be a videographer. Who are some of your influences?
So as far as like outside of music goes, the person I look up to the most in like the wedding photography world, her name, I'm gonna butcher her last name. I'm sure I'm gonna be really embarrassed about it. But her name's like Lauren Lavaria, something like that. I probably said that wrong. I'm very sorry, Lauren. But she runs a company with her boyfriend or her husband now actually called Lauren and Nick Photography, and they specialize in like fairy tale weddings,
Ooh,
and it is all I ever want to be in my life. Like she is a walking Disney princess, and all of her pictures look like they came out of Disney fairy tales.
wow.
And I don't know how she does it, but if I could pay her to teach me everything she knows, like I would just like give her my bank account.
She should do like
And
an e-learning course, like an online course about how she does her stuff.
literally, I would pay her so much money. She's
Dude.
also like the nicest person ever. Like we're friends on Facebook, and like we talk a lot, and she'll like send me things she's working on to like show me them. And I'm like, oh my God, just like show me, like actually show me how you do it, because I want to be you in the least creepy way possible.
I love that.
And then there's also a company called Fire and Ice Photography. They're in England, I believe. And it's a husband and wife company. They do portraits and weddings, and they're amazing. And they do like they sell like presets, and they sell like tutorials and stuff like that. And I learned a lot from them when I was starting, and I'm still in a lot of their Facebook groups and just look up to them a lot. As far as like music photography goes, um, it sounds really weird to say, but like a lot of the biggest people that I look up to are like my friends in the
Mm.
scene. Rob Haberman is a photographer from
Yes.
Chicago, and I love that man to death and then some. I call him my dad. He's my photo dad. And also just like genuinely one of my best friends. And then like um Anam, what's her last name? Merchant, I think. There's a girl named Penelope from Chicago who's absolutely amazing, and I got to work with her a lot with a band called Marina City a few years back. Um, those are the ones that like come to mind first. That like I've always just looked up to with my work.
I love that. I love that you've got like a couple different people that you look up to, and I love that you've got somebody in your wedding world and a couple people in the music world as well. Rob's awesome. I love that guy. He's super talented, and
Literally, I love him so much. I talk to him daily, and it's like never about anything. It's just to talk to him because I love him that much.
that's awesome. And then, so to wrap things up, I've got one more question for you, and that is, what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
Always take the money first.
Yeah.
None of this like they'll pay you later thing. Like that never happens.
Mm.
Also, always have a fucking contract.
True. True.
Would have saved myself a lot of stress if I just had someone sign a piece of paper sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So if people want to follow you, follow your journey, find your work, hire you after COVID, or, just if they have more questions for you and want to pick your brain, how can they find you?
All of my social media accounts are Kaitlyn J Photo. I spell Kaitlyn weird, apparently. I was informed that. So it's Kaitlyn. I thought that was normal, but I guess it's not. But my website's the same thing, and so is my email address. So that's about the only way to get a hold of me because I don't answer my phone.
All right, guys, that was my episode with Kaitlyn Johnston Photo. Thank you, Kaitlyn, for coming on the podcast and sharing your insights and your tips and talking about your reptiles with me for like 5 minutes. That was awesome. If you guys enjoyed this episode of Project Freelance, please be sure to leave a rating and feedback. And if you do, take a screenshot and send it to me at Project Freelance, either on Twitter or Instagram, and I will send you a signed photo print to say thank you for doing that. I appreciate you guys listening continuously every single week. Sorry last week's episode was a little late. It came out on Wednesday instead of Monday, and that's my own fault. I forgot to upload it, so yeah, sorry about that. But usually these come out Mondays at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, just in time for your Monday morning commute, even though right now we don't have Monday morning commutes. But regardless, thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next week. Pick up a case of Liquid Death Water, links down in the description, and stay strong, keep enduring, go out, and go create something.